Welcome to another episode of the Piano Pod. I'm Clara Zhang.
I am Yukimi Song.
For anyone listening or watching our show for the first time, welcome. Yukimi and I are both classical pianists and piano teachers from New York City, and this podcast is for anyone who plays the piano for fun, loves listening to piano music, or for someone who is currently pursuing a career in piano or works in the industry professionally.
In each episode, we interview a guest speaker who has been breaking exciting new ground in the music industry. Before getting started, we want to thank our amazing fans and listeners for tuning in. Please rate our show and review it on Apple Podcasts, and because every rating review will help people find our show. So today, before we go, Clara, are you okay with your voice today?
Oh, yeah, it's a little funny, right? I've been getting over a cold, but I have to say, it's 3 years of pandemic. This is the first time I got sick, and it's not COVID, so I'm gonna be okay, but I might cough a little.
It's okay. I was just so concerned.
Thank you so much. So today we have a very unique pianist coming to our show. His name is George Ko from California. Who is a young Steinway artist, composer, and improviser.
And from what we know, he is not only a pianist, but also someone who is very innovative in technology and media and visual art. Interesting fellow, right?
Very interesting. Yeah, I really can't wait to interview him, hear his stories.
Yeah, well, he's here, so let's get the show started.
You're listening to The Piano Pod, where we talk to the brightest minds in the industry about how they are bringing the piano into the 21st century.
We're honored to introduce our guest of Season 3, Episode 5, Mr. George Ko, young Steinway artist, composer, improviser, who is pushing classical music forward by blending Chopin-like virtuosity with the vast soundscapes of cinema. George's music revolves around improvisation, a practice typically confined to jazz music, which he has brought into the realm of classical music. Many of George's songs are one-take improvs, allowing maximum creativity and spontaneity. Mr. Ko has appeared on stages worldwide, from 2,000-seat auditoriums to Carnegie Hall, and his music has been heard at film festivals, television broadcasts, and music festivals in Italy, Germany, Luxembourg, and China. George is also a successful entrepreneur, having founded several companies and nonprofits, for which he received the CES Innovation Award in Robotics in 2019, the Harvard Governor's 2.0 Award for Innovation in Politics, and a patent in data management. During the pandemic, despite his success in the tech and media sector, he realized his true calling was playing the piano, so he left his job and began focusing on playing piano professionally for the first time. He is now a young Steinway artist, and Steinway has described him as, quote, making classical music accessible and exciting for the masses, end quote. So, George, welcome to the Piano Pod. We're very happy to have you. Thank you so much. Yes.
No, thank you, Camille. Thank you, Clara. Thank you so much for having me. And that was like being referred to as Mr. Ko makes me sound way more important than I should be. So
you are. You are very important to us. So yes, and to our audience. So we are very happy to have you. So where are you joining from today, George?
Yeah, I'm tuning in from Pasadena, California, just east of LA. So
wonderful. Yes. Yes, and then I see the piano. I assume that's a Steinway piano, and...
Oh, no, it's a Yamaha.
Oh, okay.
Oh. No. I'm just kidding. Steinway, I love your pianos. Please don't expunge me. No, this is, I'm very lucky. This is a 2012 Model O from New York.
Wow.
And the fun fact about this one is this is the very piano they recorded La La Land on. It's actually in one scene of the movie. I think it's been on 3 other TV shows, and I'm very lucky to have it in my apartment. A grand piano in my apartment, so thank you, Steinway. Thank you.
Oh, wonderful. So actually, Ryan Gosling touched that piano?
Oh, yeah. And they recorded all of the music on this piano. They used this piano for the soundtrack. And
oh, my goodness.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And then I think Eric Garcetti, the mayor, he christened this piano as like the La La Land piano. And so I didn't have a piano in LA, and you know, Steinways are incredibly expensive, and this is during the peak pandemic, and I just moved to Pasadena, and I asked Steinway, I said, hey, you know, I still play piano. I'm not doing it like full time anymore, but I'm building back the music, and I was just wondering, could I borrow an upright? And then an upright turned into a Boston Grand, and then a Boston Grand turned into, we'll just loan you this Model O because no one's using it. And then I tried it, and it has like the most beautiful soundboard. It sounds like a B, even though it's an O. And and I was like, oh, okay, sure.
That's amazing.
I know we checked out your website and videos and all the audios and everything, and you're an amazing artist. So we assume the love of the music was sort of like a love at first sight, right? We want to know. Okay, so how did you start your musical journey? We want to know your childhood, how you were raised, and what sort of teachers you had.
Yeah, well, guessing from my complexion, my childhood is pretty predictable, you know? Son of immigrant children, you know, with the hopes and dreams of their parents on their firstborn's shoulders. And I think my mom's dream was always to be a concert pianist, but she didn't quite make it there. And
So mom played the piano.
Mom played the piano. I also was misdiagnosed with ADHD.
Misdiagnosed.
Misdiagnosed. That's
okay.
fun. So my parents and child psychologists thought that I had a severe case of ADHD, and so my mom refused to give me pills, which actually this kind of stereotype worked in my case because I was misdiagnosed. But you know, most East Asian people don't believe in mental health medicine. I saw the child psychologist have an obligation through my preschool, but so my mom refused to give me medication, and so she was like, oh, let's use piano as a way to help you learn how to do tasks one at a time. Absolutely hated it.
Really? You hate it?
I hated the piano. I probably hated the piano until I was 21, honestly.
Wow.
And I like my piano lessons were like 2 minutes. I would run away. I would say go use the bathroom, and I'd run away. Like I'd be at my teacher's house. I need to use the bathroom, and I'd just run out the door. So I hated the piano, and I know it was never serious. I played like 1 hour a week, but I seemed to have. I was not a prodigy, so I wasn't one of those kids on YouTube at 12 playing. I wasn't doing any of that.
Right.
But for some reason, I could pick it up quickly, and I. You know, I just didn't practice. And
You have perfect pitch.
I don't have perfect pitch. I have what a previous teacher called one of the worst relative pitches I've ever seen. So I didn't really feel like I was good at piano at any point. But I knew there was pockets and moments where I had some aptitude in it because it would take me very little effort to develop something. So like, for example, if I listened to an artist play the piano, like someone who was really influential for me was Rubinstein and Long Long. But if I heard a Rubinstein recording or when I heard Long Long live, like I understood for Long Long, I understood what projection meant. Like I knew, like for some reason after watching one of his concerts, even though I hated the piano, I knew I truly hated it, but I knew how to play for 3,000 people after I heard one of his shows. And I remember playing for him one time, and he was
playing
saying,
for Lang Lang?
Yeah, when I was like really young, and I still hated the piano, and he was kind of like, "Wow, you have a concert sound," and that was like a huge compliment. But I knew how to do that without much practice, but like all the technical stuff, like. Oh, I just cut my fingers. I can't do that.
Oh, yeah. Right. Yeah.
That was all practice later down the road. But yeah, I hated it.
Wow.
Truly hated it. Sorry,
But-
that was a long ramble on hating piano
No, that's okay.
on a piano podcast.
Yeah, no, that's okay. But how did this hate like turn into love? I mean, we all have this complicated relationship
Yeah.
to music, right? I mean, as much as I love, sometimes depends on a phase, certain phase of your life, or
Yeah.
maybe, well, teachers matter, right? Certain
Oh, absolutely.
Tell me more. Tell me more.
No, yeah, I think when did it turn into like a passion? It's fairly complicated. I just turned 30, so I have 3 decades of stories.
Okay.
Welcome to the hood.
Woo.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I've crossed the Rubicon, as Rosen said in his book on Beethoven. Anyways, that was a deep classical cut. Anyways, I think there was like a series of inspirational events, and I think a really big failure that led me to love music. For me, like the first time I saw piano as a beautiful instrument was really when I saw Long Long live for the first time when I was 13. He was playing, he was playing.
Rachmaninoff.
And actually,
power, huh?
yeah, well, we were late, and because the traffic was so bad to San Diego, and I remember like they weren't letting anyone in between pieces,
Yeah.
let alone movements. And so my mom said, hey, my son's studying piano. She made up all this BS that I was like, I love Long Long, so like could they at least let me in the second movement? And I didn't want to go in, and so the usher was like, fine. So my mom pushed me in, and I didn't know where I was sitting, and I was just walking to my seat, and then that's when Long Long played. And I was just like, oh my God, that's like the most beautiful thing I've ever heard. And the orchestra happened to play in tune that day. And because California orchestras at that time, we weren't at the musicianship we were now. I think I just digged at San Diego Symphony. San Diego Symphony is great right now. Please don't get mad at me. But it was a different time. There was less budget. But
Okay.
But no. But like it was so magical, and I was like, then I started to appreciate it. I didn't love it, but I appreciated it. And then in college, I had a startup, and it was one of the first Harvard-backed startups.
So you went to Harvard? Harvard University?
I did.
Great. And what, you studied music there, or what?
No, I did not want to be a musician. I thought I was gonna be like the next Mark Zuckerberg. Talk about being having a really idiotic, narcissistic mindset going into Harvard. But I really wanted to do tech, and so I had a company, and it had some buzz in Boston, but then it failed spectacularly. We lost all of our money. All the product didn't work, and I was feeling kind of down. And I remember Harvard is like, this is talk about privilege. The Boston Philharmonic, led by Xander, performs at Harvard twice a semester for free. And they do a lecture series for all the students for free with Ben Xander.
Xander is a landmark graduate, so he's like a very famous personal development seminar.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I'm also part of it, so I'm very
fantastic.
aware of it.
Wow, yeah. He even uses the orchestra as like a guinea pig, like just like Bernstein did with the New York Philharmonic. So it's like I just go for the educational component, but they were playing Brahms' Fourth Symphony that night, and I don't know what it is. Yeah, I don't know what it is about. Oh shoot. Oh God. I don't know what it is about the Fourth Symphony, but when I heard it, I don't know. I called my parents and I said, I'm dropping out of Harvard and I'm gonna become a musician. And so I
Did they almost have a heart attack?
Oh yeah, my dad didn't talk to me for a year and a half, and then
Like, oh, that's why.
classic Asian trauma, and you know, my family was shocked. But I agreed to go back to Harvard to finish my degree. But so I decided, I studied at Colburn for 1 year. And then I also studied conducting at the same time.
Wow, conducting.
Yeah, so I don't have
And
my
you
baton
studied
with
that
me. But
in Boston at Harvard?
So I took a class at Harvard initially just to kind of get an idea of it, but I
Right.
really studied conducting with George Mester, and he taught me
Got it.
everything. And like he was a harsh teacher, but like he really didn't care that I wasn't gifted. He really taught me everything, baton technique. He and his teacher was I mean, he studied with Zell and Schulte. So
Wow.
so, you know, like I even learned, I don't have a baton here, but like I learned how to like hold an orchestra, like, and like do like full legato, and then like even like cue in different instruments while playing, like he taught me everything about baton technique and how to guide an orchestra. So I did gap year of that, and I was so bad at piano, I couldn't even play like I would play with mistakes all the time, or I couldn't play like I can't play it now, but you know, I couldn't play any big repertoire, and so during that year of development, it was the first time in my life I practiced 8 to 10 hours a day every day for 1 year, and then I
Wow.
went back to Harvard. I switched my major to music, and then I pursued classical music from there. And so that's when I really got nerdy into music. Like I was in the music library every day. Harvard is very fortunate. They have the most complete classical music library in the world.
That's true.
So I read everything. Like, like this is when, you know, going to Harvard is stupid. Like I pulled out a Bach book, you know, and I opened it, and I noticed it was handwritten. The whole book was handwritten, and it was
Wow.
it was an archive of all his pieces. And I remember I went to the librarian and I said, "Is this the first Bach manual? Like, is this where BWV numbers came from?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, that's the original."
Wow.
It's
And I
right
said,
there.
"Yeah," and I said, "Why isn't this in a museum? And we could just check it out." Like,
Yeah.
I did a paper on Bernstein, and I had the original sketches of West Side Story. I just checked out. I didn't wear gloves.
Wow,
Oh my goodness.
And I just was like, and I have Bruckner 5. I had the original
Oh my
score
goodness.
Schulte
Wow.
used, all his conducting notes.
Oh my goodness.
I've just seen the weirdest things now. So I like
Do you
dive
think
into
it's because Yo-Yo Ma went there, and so he invested a lot of? Because my cousin
Oh.
went to Harvard, and he was, I mean, he's a scientist, but he studied cello at Harvard, and he was telling me, but he was trying to sneak me into the library, but I didn't have an ID, so I was like in Kansas, so they wouldn't.
Oh no! So the Harvard Library is open to the public.
I don't know
so-
why that day I couldn't get in, but
That's
I
because it's
remember trying.
Harvard and they're pretentious as
think?
oh no, I don't think.
He was
I
trying
know.
very hard, and he really tried to get me in, and I just couldn't.
I mean, they do. Harvard likes to gatekeep because they like to.
Yeah. Well, he
project
was a
how important-
sophomore, so you know we
No,
were
no,
all
no.
like those kids.
We have
so-
access. No, we have access to. If you're an undergraduate at Harvard, you have the most access to all departments in any department at Harvard. So you have access to all 50 something libraries and all archives.
Oh, wow.
You're also allowed to take
Amazing.
every class at Harvard. So it doesn't matter if you're an undergrad, you can take the grad classes, PhD, you can do
Yeah.
research.
Really?
You can take
Wow.
everything.
Wow.
So,
And so you were music major at Harvard at one point.
after switching my major the 7th time, I ended up being a music major, and
Gosh.
yeah, like it was crazy. Like Bob Levin was a faculty emeritus, so he
Wow.
had a Bach era harpsichord, he had a Schumann era piano, he had a Brahms Streicher piano. So
Oh my
like
goodness.
I practiced Mozart on a Stein.
Wow.
You
that-
know?
that-
Like the
What an
access
opportunity.
was, yeah, it was crazy. So like I dived in nerd deep, and so Harvard was actually really deep into classical music before Yo-Yo, and and they were really big on musicology, Western classical music, Western. So like they've probably been one of the top musicology departments, probably since the early 1900s. So they've just been building their archives, and Harvard was also a springboard for a lot of important composers. So Stravinsky gave his first lecture on Rite of Spring at Harvard. Poulenc commissioned a lot of choral works for the Harvard a cappella groups and choirs. And so a lot of composers would come to Harvard to do commissions. Ernst Bloch was a composer in residence at Harvard. You know, Elliott Carter graduated from Harvard. John Adams is done in residency at Harvard. And the Parker
Great
Quartet.
composer.
Yeah, oh, genius. Both Luther and John Adams. And then, the Parker Quartet is in residence at Harvard. So it's always been a center of music. And I think that's why Yo-Yo went there, was because like you could keep it up. I mean, and now they have, sorry.
Did you ever meet George Lee? We wanting to.
George, yeah.
Are you guys
of course I met George
something?
Lee. You have two Georges that
I'm
are
sure.
I'm Chinese Taiwanese American, but like
I
you have two Georges,
Yeah.
both Chinese
descent,
both at
yeah.
Harvard. It's funny
Exactly.
because like he would practice.
George also kind of got famous because after he played for long, right, in the beginning.
Like when he was super young. But
like 8.
he became famous because he won.
Right.
Yeah, he won the Tchaikovsky piano competition.
course.
That's but it's funny. He would practice the toccata, and I would play. I would just play up a half step, and then
Oh my goodness.
just to mess with him. No, so yeah, like
We should get both of you on our show one time together.
nah, you just need him. He's the superstar. You don't need me. Like you just have
not true.
his Fantasy Wonder is fantastic. I know now I'm getting like way sidetracked. But
No.
But no, yeah, being at Harvard
amazing
was super
experience.
intimidating. Like the musicianship. Just imagine everyone who got into Juilliard and Curtis and then decided not to go. That's the musicians at Harvard. And so I was like at the bottom, like real bottom of the totem pole. Like when I was in school, no one would really give me opportunities. And so I had to I think maybe that's how part of my career is. Like I had to produce my own concerts because Harvard wouldn't support me. Harvard wouldn't give me opportunities to perform. I had to fight for them because I wasn't a famous musician. And so I organized a lot of my own concerts.
Good for you.
You know, I had concerts in my dorm room, like on a keyboard, or like I would negotiate with student organizations, be like, hey, can you sponsor my concert? And then I will donate all the tickets back to your organization just to play, you know? And I think back then I was kind of bitter because I saw it as like, wow, all these talented classmates are getting all the opportunities. But then I look back and I say, no, they deserved it. They worked really hard.
Right.
They are really gifted. They're like, there's so many prodigies for some reason. But at the same time, it forced me to be creative. And so now I don't look at it as like bitter because as classical musicians, we constantly compare ourselves to other people.
Of course. Yeah, of course.
It's just super toxic, but yeah.
Right. Yeah, totally. I totally. So that's why we wanted to interview you. So we love the creativity, how you are really using your creativity to reach out to your audience. It's awesome. And a lot of musicians should learn from you. Now, one thing before we talk about other topics, we want to know, did you have any jazz training while you were at Harvard or anywhere else?
For piano, zero.
Oh,
Absolutely
okay.
zero. I played in a jazz combo, but I couldn't improvise.
Right.
And I just read. I was
Same
really
here.
good. Yeah, I was really good at sight reading. Like I played jazz alto. So I was the worst jazz musician. So Harvard also has like a jazz band and it's really good. And I was the worst person in the band. The only reason why they kept me was because of two things. One, I was really good at sight reading. So I could read all the charts. Two, I had a really good sound. That was the only reason, but I was not allowed to improvise at any point. That was so
But
bad.
but he's so ironic. But now here you are. You're an improviser, right? So
Yeah, that's all I do
yeah.
now. So it's super
Yeah.
weird.
No,
But,
no, no. It's really cool. But you sort of make fun of yourselves. But you got this amazing award from Harvard, like Harvard Governor 2.0 Award for Innovation in Politics. I mean, it's amazing. What are all these things like? Before you became the musician, you had this, startups and everything. Can you tell us a little bit?
Yeah, I always tell people I have a very schizophrenic career because I just do whatever interests me at the moment. I have no like this idea of career planning or I'm 30 and a lot of my peers have planned out their careers since college and I've never approached life that way. So I think that lends to why I've done so many different things. Like in my adult life, I've been a professional like photographer. I've been a designer,
Right.
entrepreneur. I ran my own media company. I was a journalist. I was a food critic. I've done manufacturing to software to brand strategy, and I worked in higher ed for a little bit. And so like I just
my
have
goodness.
super
You
random.
have experience of everything. Wow.
I know.
But I
You're
don't.
only 30? Oh my gosh.
I think it's just because I never did the like. I need to stick 10 years into this. I was just like, I'll do this for a year and see what's up. So yeah, I would say like the two big things after I left college that I worked on were a media company that was specifically focused on Asian American stories. Which I launched with the original founder of the magazine Giant Robot. It was called Giant Robot Media, and I did that for 2 years with him. And his documentary is coming out actually, and it's in tomorrow, and it's super exciting. But yeah, he was like that was really fun. And then I worked on a robotics company with my brother, and that was kind of like the biggest, I guess, things aside from music that I've worked on the last 10
Wow.
years. And
That's
but yeah.
That's pretty cool. So while you were doing that, did you keep going with your music career?
Yeah, so I guess just explaining that, like, so after college, Steinway, one of the board members at Steinway heard me play a concert at Carnegie, and they were a fan, and so that's how I became a young Steinway artist. I was asked to participate in that process,
Right.
So afterwards, I teamed up with Steinway, and they kind of backed my career after college, and I played piano like in tandem with them for about a year. And then I thought this was the dream, and I was playing like 70 concerts, and
Oh my goodness.
And
I
when
wa-
was this? This is
this
recently.
is when
you
I was
said.
20. This is when I was 23,
Got
and
it.
but I hated every second of it.
Wow.
Like I hated every part. I hated the practicing. I hated the perfection of it. I hated that I couldn't collaborate with anyone.
Right.
Because there's a solo
Very long
piano,
career, yeah.
and then I hated how everyone was so narrow-minded, and I didn't like how everyone was so mean. Like no one told me everyone was mean. Like like there are a few, like Emmanuel X, Manny, lovely person. Yo-Yo's
Right.
lovely.
Totally.
But then like some people are only nice to you if you're a prodigy, and I was just like, what is this? Like why am I suffering so much for this life? Like this makes no sense. And it actually reminded me a lot of my experience at Harvard. It was like one of the hardest experiences of my life. It was super condescending, it was super negative environment. I didn't even want to go there. So I was just like, why am I doing this again? This is so miserable. And so that's when I quit. That's when I left music. And then from when I was 23 to 28, I didn't play professionally. I would just occasionally play gigs. Like I was doing a business trip in Japan, and then Steinway Tokyo was like, "Oh, we'd love for you to play for our audience." And I was like, I haven't played live in like 3 years. But then I was like, okay, so this is like 2017. I was like, okay, I'll give a concert. So I'll just do one-offs. But I wasn't really serious for 5 years. I just did not. I think since I was 23, I didn't really play classical music anymore. I just kind of
And at this point, you were living in New York. You said you were in New York for a while.
I was in New York because I was getting most of my gigs in New York, and yeah, like we were talking about, my apartment was literally piano and bed, and just to give, okay, so I was very lucky with the piano I had, but just to give like the realities of being a musician in the industry. So Steinway was very kind to me, and basically they gave me at a ridiculous discount for the same price of a much smaller piano. And with all my life savings, I got a 9-foot Steinway, and it was the Boston Symphony Hall D. It was a CD 668, and it was the one that Kissin would use every year.
Oh my God!
And it was
still Kissin's piano.
Yeah, well, it was probably one of the best New York pianos I've ever played in my life.
Sure.
And then in May of this year, I sold it to fund the career.
That's amazing. I mean, that's like selling a leg, you know.
Oh yeah.
I mean, if I have to ever sell my piano, I'm like, that would be the end of everything.
Yeah, and I agree. Like but like I put it the way I got around. I mean, I was really sad. I mean, I just drank whiskey every day for 2 weeks. But I'm not saying you should do that. But I basically thought about it, and I played on a Hamburg a few weeks before that, and it was one of the best pianos I ever played in my life. And so I thought, okay, if I'm also way too young to have a 9-foot, you know, like I got way too lucky, too young. And I said, it will come back one time again, and I'll find the magic piano again. So it's okay to sell it right now.
Yeah.
And that piano went to a wonderful professor's home, and he's like texting me every day how like it's the best Steinway he's ever played in his life, and I would text him back,
every
I know
Steinway has its own story.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like it'll, you know, but that's just the realities of being a musician.
That's amazing.
But
This episode is presented in collaboration with our good friends at Forte, a free alternative to Zoom purpose-built for music teachers.
We're happy to announce that Forte will always be free for music teachers. No strings attached.
That's right, Forte offers features optimized for classical music lessons, including audio quality far superior to existing platforms and allowing you to hear every nuance of your student's instrument. Their colleagues at the Royal College of Music, Aspen Music Festival, Curtis Institute, and Berklee College of Music have even used Forte in their own programs.
Forte's mission is to radically expand access to high-quality music education worldwide. Forte always puts music teachers and their students first. This means you can use Forte with your own students for free forever. And Forte will soon introduce paid features allowing you to connect with new students around the world.
Sign up for free today at fortelessons.com. That is fortelessons.com, or click the link in the description.
Let's continue with the episode. I want to know how eventually, at this point you're 2017, right? And then nobody knew pandemic was going to happen a few years later. So what happened within the next few years, and then how did you eventually come back to it during the pandemic? Oh my gosh.
Yeah, so I had some pretty big life events. Like, I think my career went this way, and I would say like the catalyst of all music, I had a pretty bad breakup. So I think both of those things happened.
It's always part of our stories, right?
Yeah, and then COVID happened.
Right.
But right before COVID, I was like, what do I want to do with my life? I think that was like the first thing. And I remember like waking up, one day, and I'm back living at my parents' place, and I'm like, why am I living at my parents' place again? I felt like I failed, even though now after doing therapy for 2 years, I realized like I didn't fail. It's just everyone was going through a rough time. I asked myself, what do I really want to do? Because you are right. Like, I'm very lucky. Before I was 30, I tried a bunch of things already. So I knew what I liked and what I didn't like. But what did I want to do? And I'm a person who loves craft. Like, I love the idea of working on something for decades and perfecting it. And so I was like, but what's going to be my craft? And I thought it was classical. So I started digging up old repertoire. I started like relearning. I actually auditioned for the Chopin competition, and I was like, I'm going to go back.
You did? Wow.
I was like, I'm going to go back full time. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but then I was like, you know what I always wanted to do is improvise. You know? And I think that's the thing every classical musician wants to do. It's just like play at the piano and just play something, you know? And I like it's insane to me. Like I've studied composition and I could play all these complicated classical pieces, but I can't play anything for me because at the end of the day, like the artistry of a classical musician is the interpretation and the ability to inspire people. But the thing that's not in our wheelhouse is our music, like our composition. That's not our notes. Like our job is like we're the best cover artists of all time. But like and that's a hard thing to accept, right? Because
exactly.
the beauty of studying music at Harvard, even though it was incredibly condescending and difficult, was that you had to learn about all kinds of music. And I was just like, I want to be like Jimi Hendrix. I want to be like, you know, Wynton Marsalis. And oh my God, now they have Esperanza Spalding as faculty, which is so like I was just like, and I got to study with amazing people like Vijay Iyer and Yosvani Terry and all these amazing improvisatory performers. And then the Silk Road Ensemble did workshops with us like 5 times a semester, and I was like, I want to do that, but I can't. I don't know how to do that. And so I remember it was March of 2020. Right at the beginning of the pandemic.
Exactly.
I woke up and I was just like, you know what? I'm gonna play whatever's in my head. I don't have perfect pitch. I've never improvised on the piano. I don't know how to do it. I'm gonna try to figure it out. And I honestly don't know what happened. I sat at the piano and I did it. I was playing what was in my head.
That's amazing.
And then I was like, this is not possible. I was like, this is a movie. This is not real. And so I asked my brother like for requests, and I would ask him to give me requests of songs I've never played in my life, pop music. I've never, and then I could do it. And then my brother couldn't believe it. Then I got my mom, and my mom asked me to play all these old Chinese songs. And I've never read the music for that, and I could do all of it. And then I was like,
月亮代表我的心 Go.
Yeah, so,
你问我有多深，我爱你有几分。It's my very horsey voice. Oh my gosh. The old classics are all coming back. Beautiful.
So like 月亮代表我的心. Like I never learned the sheet music. Thank you. But it just started clicking, and then so I started like there was this viral app Clubhouse during the pandemic, and it was like this audio app, and a lot of people were on it to make friends because we're all bored. Okay, great. Yeah. So I went on Clubhouse and I just started improvising for people.
Wow.
And
nice.
It was, and like it grew from 1 room to 5 to 100, and I think the biggest it got to was like 5,000.
You know what?
And
no, I'm
was
thinking
crazy.
maybe I have seen you on there because I feel like your name felt a little familiar when Kimi was telling me in the beginning. You know, when you guys wrote to us. Maybe. Wow, that's amazing.
But George, so do you want to like improvise for us? Like
Oh, sure, we can do it. This is piece I wrote. It's for an ex. It's for an ex, but it's called For You.
Okay.
And it's in the
Must be very
style
romantic.
of it's inspired by Bill Evans, but again, I don't know how to play jazz, so this is me faking jazz. But
But let's hear it.
all right, this is For You.
George's version.
Thank you. Thank you.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much. That was for you.
Excellent. Amazing. So, as I was listening, so challenge as a classical musician myself is to try to play by ear or improvise on the piano on the spot, right? So it's not that I can't. Thankfully, majority of us have this really strong training in solfege, ear training, all the stuff. And then but actually what blocks us from is because we are afraid of going outside of our comfort zone. I mean, okay, that doesn't sound right, because playing Chopin etude and Liszt sonata is not my comfort zone. Okay, I have to practice on that. Right?
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There's a lot of things. Yeah.
Right. But then improvisation is another thing, and we tend to be extremely judgmental of ourselves. So, any encouragement you have toward classical musicians on how to start improvise?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, so like the thing is, hopefully that comes through on the improv is, if you heard, I don't try to shy away from any of the technique. I think that's really important, because a lot of times when we think of improvisation, especially from the classical tradition, we think, even if we're playing things like, I don't remember any of it, or like, even if we're playing things like that, when we improvise, we suddenly dumb down our technique because it is difficult. There's that fear component. But I think hopefully, like, when I improvise, I try to incorporate as much technique as possible. Or like, to kind of show that all of this stuff is hidden in our subconscious somewhere. So like, the way to tap into that part of our brain is there's a lot of different layers. So when we're learning classical music, we're taught very systematically what to do.
Right.
And but we don't, when we're learning a piece, we're not learning it specifically from the perspective of songwriting. And I think that is the biggest hurdle before you talk about improvisation. So just even before you talk about improvising, when you learn like, or you learn like, like, I'm just playing Chopin, but like, if you're learning any of this, try to see why things work the way they do harmonically, or like from a like a melody perspective, like why does this work? Why does that work? Like, and so that kind of mindset is important if you're starting from the classical tradition. And for me, what was really inspirational was two of my teachers studied with Nadia Boulanger.
Yes, of course.
She teaches her students is that perspective, is teaching composition from the perspective of songwriting, not necessarily for the piano. So you need to have a very strong understanding of music. So that's before you get to piano and technique. What happens is a lot of classical pianists, when they try to improvise, they start from the technique. They don't start from songwriting. So when a classical person, when you tell them to improvise, say an A, like A minor, like if you tell them to improvise in A minor, just A minor, they don't even know where to start. They might play the chord, the triad, maybe they'll play the 5. This is like what normally happens when you ask a classical person to improvise. But if you study songwriting like Mozart loves using first inversions. So you might go 1, 1, first inversion. This is, a D minor. Maybe a suspension. And then if you like Brahms, you'll move to here. Like, like that, but that improvisation comes from knowing good songwriting. So that's the first thing. The second thing, sorry.
Yeah. No, that's all right. I just had a quick question that I was like, it's been popping in my head. Do you feel that, because you said it was kind of like, it came as a surprise, right? And I kind of remember that in the conservatory back home, I'm long generation, so we all went to the conservatory around like 11, 12ish, and in mainland China, and all these kids are very talented, right? And I again, just like I was not well trained in the beginning, and I just somehow got in. So I witnessed a lot of greatness from the very beginning. But I realized at one point, like by the time we were 13, 14, all of a sudden some kids in my class would start to play for malls, for like cafes, or like we get paid to do, and then they were just so good. And so I now, I obviously have a piano studio, and I study a lot of philosophy, and I also do a lot of studying of the brain. I wonder if it has something to do with the certain repertoire we are forced to learn at a certain point. And I even see some of my own students, at some point, I don't teach them improvisation, but at one point, they would just automatically kind of start to pick up certain things.
That only happens if they're extraordinarily gifted.
But do you think that you said at one point you start practicing 8 to 10 hours a day? Did this happen right after that, or
No. This literally happened when I was like March 2020.
Oh, when the pandemic hit.
Yeah.
Wow, interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, so like.
And when you actually had a little break.
Oh, I don't know.
playing.
I literally woke up and it did it. And I think it's because of the songwriting perspective. Because like I knew songs, and I love like John Mayer, and I love Jimi Hendrix, and I love Alicia Keys, and I love like great rap, like, or hip hop, like A Tribe Called Quest and Handsome Boy Modeling School. And I think because I like songs, and I think that desire to play songs and understanding of songs is what tapped into that, which is I think
true.
what you're experiencing with your students. But that, like, I don't, it's weird to talk about yourself, but for those students, it's like, because that only happens if they're extraordinarily gifted.
No,
they
it's
figured
not
it out on their
everyone,
own.
right?
Right.
Exactly.
But there is a way to figure it out.
But it's also, it's a time when they start to like pop songs. I think that also has, and now thinking back my childhood, like my friends, that's true. When you start to listen to songs, right? Rather than just compositions of long
But
pieces.
actually, classical music were the greatest pop songs of the day. Like, people forget Mozart was known as a pop
about
writer.
this.
He
Yep,
was not like Beethoven didn't play his own music. He was known as the greatest improviser in Europe and the greatest keyboardist, but he was not known as a great composer. Haydn was the right. Johann Christian Bach, CPE Bach. Mozart and Beethoven Mozart was an opera composer.
Right.
So like everyone kind of forgets that. So like if you examine Mozart, like he plays 1-5-1, but how does he do 1-5-1? He doesn't go. He goes. Right? He's all circling around C. So when he leaves C, it's more exciting. So like these are all components of good songwriting. It's like when the Beatles, right, when they like circle around G, and then instead of going back to 1, they go. They delay it, right? They go to 4, and then instead of going back to 1, they do a first inversion. So if you look at the Beatles, they have the same songwriting components as Mozart, because they knew how to write good songs. And so like that, if like we taught music that way, like classical, it would be, and also like styles, like when we learn Ravel, right? It's so difficult. But if you can grasp the idea of the style, then you can do things like. Then you can improvise in the style of Ravel because you understand how he writes songs.
Right.
But anyways, so that's kind of like
Interesting.
how to tap into. And the fear component is you have to be okay with making mistakes always. And accept you're not a robot. And that playing perfectly is a myth, and playing perfectly was created by Mahler, and Mahler ruined classical music. Once you accept all of that, no, like Mahler truly ruined the fun. Mahler made classical music the most unfun thing in the world. He created the concert hall we know today, which is the raised stage, and you can't see anything in the first 3 rows. And he created this idea of ortext. Ortext didn't exist before Mahler. Did you know that Mozart would change the score of Figaro every night?
Right.
And Mahler was about to throw all of it away because he said it wasn't the perfect edition. And this monk saved it. And so this idea of perfection is completely overrated and has pervaded into classical music and totally ruined the fun and joy out of it. And so like that's another thing. The fear thing is you have to deprogram that world. You have to go in with having fun. You can't go in with like everything needs to sound perfect. I mean, for me personally, when I improvise now, like obviously I can't play perfectly ish with a band-aid on my finger, but like I do sometimes, like when I improvise, sometimes I purposely play mistakes so people know I'm improvising. Because I've noticed sometimes when I play my shows, and I guess this is weird to talk about yourself, but like sometimes people would not believe I'm improvising. They think, oh no, you wrote the piece. I said, no, it's completely improvised. And so like sometimes I would purposely put in mistakes so people would know I'm completely making it up. So I think this idea of perfection, you have to kind of go over it and you have to have fun. And once you have fun, and then you have these ideas of good songwriting, it will come. The third skill is, do you actually know the notes? And what I mean by that is when you read a score of music, like can you actually read it? Like instead of reading, like for example, are you reading this on the piano, like the hand positions, or are you reading E flat, D, but actually it's B flat, it's a B flat 7, but just with a D and F. Can you read it like that? And this is pushing it down into resolving into A flat, first inversion. And like, if you read music that way, then you probably start improvising or writing music very quickly. But if you read music as, this is where my finger goes, this is where my finger goes, this is where my finger goes, then you'll never get there. So I think it's all those components put together. And I'll stop rambling. That was a lot.
No, it's okay. No. But, as a pianist, we tend to think that way. Oh, this finger goes this.
Yeah.
Because that's how we think about music, right? Yeah. I am learning as I am interviewing a lot more artists now, and like the way pianists tend to think about music, and also conservatory graduate or conservatory training. That's another whole thing. And I'm not saying
your brain.
Yeah, I'm not saying yay or nay about anything, but I think
just part of
our tendency is to think certain ways about music, which is so different from composers' mindset and also improvisers or even conductors' mindset, right?
Yeah.
So in so many ways, it makes sense that you study conductor to be a conductor rather than piano itself, right? I am curious about your albums and EP. I know recently you just produced the latest one. It's called Nomad in the Sky. In the Sky is the latest one. Now, so tell us, Nomad in the Sky. I checked it out, and it says an exploration of your favorite anime and TV shows and embody the hero's a journey, and you wanted to create a piano suite that encapsulates the mysticism of an epic voyage. So it's like every single album or EP you produce seems to have a theme, and also there's a collaboration with a visual artist. So can you tell us?
Yeah, so I guess it's kind of like program music in a way.
Cool.
But yeah, I try to have a theme for everything because I think it's fun, and it's just when you create a body of work, it's just nicer when there's a story,
Sure.
Like it's funny, even though we think of these older composers, like we think, okay, that's like the Third Symphony, but like, and then we named it Eroica later, but like, Beethoven did write that for Napoleon, and that's a cool story, right? And so I think we are gravitated by stories. That's the kind of people, like, we're social beings, and so I think that's kind of why it lends to the themes. And then I really love art, and I've been very lucky to work with a lot of great artists like Maggie Chiang. She's a Taiwanese American artist. She did my EP, and then I collabed with this artist couple, Georgico, no relation, but that's just their artist duo name. But like they painted the arc.
Yes, I noticed that name. I thought it was like, well, did you find them just because? Yeah,
No, we were just fans of each other. Pure coincidence.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, that's because they designed your vanguards of the Cosmos. Right. Yeah, I wanted to ask you about that album too, because one, Impromptu for No One was like really Debussy-like, and then also you challenged yourself. You challenged yourself to be the part of this Paganini Variation Club with Liszt and Brahms and Rachmaninoff and Berkovich, and so tell us.
Sorry. Yeah. That album was like an homage to the classical world, and so like the first piece was like Prelude for Chopin, and that was like a piece for Chopin, and then Impromptu for No One. Yeah, it's like a piece. It's just kind of like one of those aimless pieces, like Debussy-like, or Pavane for a Dead Princess. Like, is there a point to it? No, but there is meaning. It's kind of like one of those pieces. And then I wanted to do something really stupid, which was improvise like a whole etude set. And like I just thought if I could, because for me, a big part of my classical music journey was proving to classical musicians that I can play. And I was very much discouraged my entire career. I've been told by very famous professors who teach at the world's best conservatories. Here are some of my favorite quotes are, it's obvious you're very passionate about music, but you can never play, so you should give up. You would be a great pianist had you been born in China and not the United States.
That's funny.
You're probably the worst student I ever auditioned, but we'll give it a try. And so like I've been told like the craziest stuff. And there are very famous musicians today who have been very not kind to me about my musicianship. And so I felt like with that particular theme, improvised variation, I wanted to prove to real players that I can improvise at a level where you would think I wrote this etude and like I practiced for hours. And so that's kind of like part of the reason I did the improvised variations was, one, it was a challenge for myself, but at the same time it was to prove to serious musicians that I can play. And so I decided to do the most difficult one, which is do my version of Paganini, because Liszt and Brahms did their like crazy versions, and Brahms had the octave bliss. I figured out how to do it really easily, but that's like another interview. But and so I tried to explore that, and I really wanted to see if I could improvise etudes for like all these different unique variations, but also have all the ebbs and flows of a true complete set. So have a very mysterious, esoteric, slow part, but like harmonically very complicated. And then really cap it at the end with this big show off etude. And that was really done all in one take. All my albums are in one take, but
really
everything's in one take. I don't micro edit anything.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah. You are sticking to being an improviser. That's amazing. That's very inspiring.
Yeah, so literally I have written no notes on any of my pieces. So like even when I play Impromptu for No One, like everything is different every time. It's never the same. And I just keep it that way. Like I refuse to write down any of the notes. So people ask me for my arrangements, and I say it's not an arrangement. I played that for you in that moment. I don't know how to do it again. I honestly don't remember how to do it.
I wonder what came to the dream that night. Everything just changed.
I have no idea.
cool.
I'm just so grateful it happened, and
Right.
I have a like starting of a career for it, and I'm just super
I wonder if
grateful.
it's also just a mixture of different experiences, right? You really had a very unique music experience, I think, than a lot of other musicians probably, that just stay in their conservatory or whatever, however everybody is. So one of the earlier guests of our show, Rimac, which you just I don't know if you know him. He's like a YouTuber, pianist from Malaysia, and he was
Cool.
like an early generation. Like when YouTube first came out, and he was like the most well known in Asia. And yeah, but he was my student briefly for a year, and he couldn't be a music major because he was playing video games so much that he like couldn't really read, and so he was like improvising because he was like didn't want to tell his dad he was playing too much games. But anyway, and so I remember he's like about the same age, like a couple of years younger than me, so we were good friends, but I was technically also his professor, so he was like,
Right.
and then I was teaching these classes in the university where everybody else is a music major, and here he is economy major. He was like, but you have to have feelings, like he's trying to tell all these other music students, and they were like, what is that? Like, I gotta practice. I have no time for that. It's just really interesting. So seeing what you have gotten, I mean, I cannot wait. One day, maybe when the inspiration comes again, maybe you will have a class where you can teach other people how to improvise the same way. I would take that class totally.
Oh yeah, I actually
Yeah.
did. I was a guest lecturer for tone bass for a
Oh
month.
wow, that's
And,
cool.
Congratulations,
We
yeah.
interviewed
Yeah,
them.
and
That's right.
I've guest lectured at like Juilliard and Tanglewood, but never that was like for classical or for music and
got it.
technology. But I've never done like I wish I could do it at a conservatory. But yeah, like
Yeah.
I got
Well, maybe
my
it's not time yet. Maybe, at
well,
some point it will come
well,
through. Right
yeah,
now you
we'll
have maybe
see.
too many other things. And and I have another question that I really want to, because I mean, Kimi and I think we pride ourselves for being a little bit untraditional as well. That's why we have our
Yeah.
podcast. And then you have this, you're pushing classical music forward by creating like audience, engaging events and recordings. And I know you also have all these other sort of interests, like Yukimi was showing me this beautiful gang of, it was designed by Guo Pei, and I believe Rihanna wore it one
Yeah, the
time. And
Empress,
I think
the
you are performing for the event in December, right? And how does this all these things like or impression of how, like, I don't know, how did you all these ideas that or experience that you have had from Harvard, from Asian parenting, from growing up in California, from living in New York, and from playing all these different gigs, and from liking and not liking it, from people saying no to you repeatedly, and to people who are like, oh wow, you're not a Steinway artist, even though you're doing other majors. Like, did you at one point just kind of like, all right, this is me, and I'm just gonna put everything together? Like, did you have a moment like that?
yeah. I guess to my advantage or detriment, I just really always wanted to do what I wanted to do, and so like growing up as a Asian American kid, that was not easy because I never wanted to do what my parents wanted to do. And I think like having fun is like the other component. And so like for example, I've been going to classical music concerts since I was 3 every week, and I rarely had fun as a kid, because like
I was just
wanna go
gonna
to
say, good
Disneyland.
job, mom and dad, and then you were like,
What's crazy is like I guess this is my talent I've noticed my true talent in music. I have two. One is sound production For some reason, when I play any instrument, I know how to produce a good sound. So I know that's my talent. My second talent is musical memory. So I even remember the first concert I went to, Pacific Symphony. I was 3. They played Mozart 41. Absolutely hated it. But I think like I just realized I was when I was doing these events, I was like, classical music is great, or like now I'm just doing improvised classical music, and I said, but I want people to have fun. And I remember in school learning about what it was like to go to a classical music concert in the 17th, 18th, and 19th centuries, and that was way more fun than today. Like, you went to a Mozart opera.
Yeah.
You could have breakfast, you watch like part of it, then you have a 2-hour intermission.
Yeah.
You come back, maybe drink a little bit, eat a little bit
Whatever
more.
you want to do.
Or like salons, like every great composer you could think of hung out basically at a pub. In Paris, a very posh pub, and they just played piano for like 8 hours and got drunk together. Like
we have a salon series here. We're gonna have a salon on
fantastic.
Friday. We serve drinks, and people.
Yeah.
We were
wow.
like, get
There you go.
drunk before we start playing.
exactly.
So that,
And so like
you
I
make
want to
amazing
exactly, and I think we're all in that same vein. Like I want to bring that fun to people my age. So like most people in my audience are like 22 to 35 because I think I'm trying to create experiences what they would enjoy. And so like whether that's in food or in fashion or like even like this Saturday I did a concert at Colburn and we had over 100 people and almost everyone was under the age of 35. And I just remember like security guards at Colburn were like, this is the youngest audience we've ever seen for an adult.
Right.
Like that's not a community school event. They're like, this is the youngest audience we've ever seen. And they're like, we were watching it through the monitors and it looks like a lot of fun. And I was like, that's exactly what I'm going for is fun. But like the other thing too is respecting your audience enough where you won't dumb down the music. So even when I'm improvising, I don't dumb down from the harmony. Like if you wanted to analyze in a theory class, I'm doing augmented sixths, I'm doing diatonic tones, I'm doing common tone pivoting, I'm doing triadic chromaticism, I'm doing motivic development, I'm doing inner voices, I'm playing 5-voice harmony. I'm not dumbing down the music for my audience, but I'm presenting it in a way that's fun. And I'm respecting my audience for their musical knowledge. And I think when you combine all of that, then you get to do exciting events like playing piano for Guopei's like Winter Gala, which is super fun. Or, in November 17th, I'm doing a show in K-Town, in Koreatown. And it's going to be at it's like Soho House for like people who are into Asian culture, it's like it's like a club. And Steinway, like we did the show last month, like Steinway brought in a 7-foot Spirio B, and then I just play piano and like I play an actual show while people are having dinner. So
Wow.
yeah.
So in so many ways our philosophy and yours are similar. Like
Very
we're also not dumbing down the audience, and also even teaching our students are smart, but maybe they're not in this classical music world, right? But then it's really my job is to how to present this tradition of Western music, classical music to my students and to my audience, to our audience, right? This is really totally up to you, and you can do as creative as the way you're doing and as creative as how we are try to do with this podcast. So I really appreciate you sharing this honest opinion. So in relation to this topic, so what's your vision for this classical music industry? I know you are sort of bridging classical music to other field, other genre in music, but you have this classical training. So what's your vision for this classical music industry? Yeah.
Because
What do
in
you
a
think?
few years, because I can solve all the problems in a few
Right.
years. I think there's a lot of things that need to change. One is that I think classical people or people who run organizations need to realize this is not a white industry anymore. This is more an Asian one. And I think times change. And I think it's like being more open and diverse about that. I think it's a more female one. There are way more female musicians studying now than men. I think it's
Sure.
like 60-40%.
That's
So
funny.
if
Yeah.
you go to Juilliard, most of the applicants that apply to Juilliard are female. So I think having more female voices is incredibly important. Of course, that will hurt my career as a man, but
You know,
no, but that's just the truth.
it's just so funny. It just occurred to me. I just remember this from so long ago. But when I got into the conservatory, you know, at that time they like choose 8,000 kids out of 30 from 8,000, right? And I remember literally there were like in my class there are pianists and violinists, and there's 9 boys all together. And then you know we were talking about
Wow,
how
yeah.
eventually all 9 of them will have a career, and none of us, like even at 11 we knew
Oh.
that. And it's like you know, we never even thought that deeply at that age, but that's interesting you're saying that. Yeah.
No, yeah, I mean, like that is like a trend we're still seeing today. That needs to change. I think the way we educate music in America needs to change. We've forgotten why American conservatories were great. American conservatories were great because we didn't just teach you how to play the instrument. We taught you how to be a person. If you look at the classes they taught in the 50s, you were required to take very difficult musicology classes, philosophy, linguistics. How do you play Chopin without knowing how to dance? How do ballade, mazurka, waltz, jig, barcarolle? You know, like you need to know how to dance. This dance music, and most concert pianists don't know how to dance. Or you'd be surprised. Like I taught a master class at Tanglewood, and no one knew orchestra excerpts. And they're playing Brahms, and I would quote like Academic Festival Overture, and they had no idea what it was. And so we need to change how we approach music, teach music. We need to get music appreciation back into public schools.
Amen.
Like the reason why the classical music audience is aging is because all the people going in the audience had a great public school education, and all of them had one thing in common. They went to music appreciation. And the other thing is the classical industry needs to finally recognize that film music is the opera of today. It needs to accept it because like I'm also a film composer, and I can confidently say no one who wants to have fun, who has musical ability, wants to write music for classical anymore. We all want to write it for movies because that's fun. And like it's just as complicated.
Right.
You know, if you look at, I mean, John Williams would be like early Brahms complexity, but it's still complicated and great music, and it moves us. And every time you hear, every time you hear, you're like, oh my God, you're back into like you're put back into that place in a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So I think all those things need to change, and yeah, and then I think also the way we teach music, like we should go from the perspective of having fun, doing it well, but not from a place of negative judgment. Because on my hand, I can count how many people are happy doing classical music, but I would run out of limbs to talk about how many people have been hurt by classical music. Like truly hurt.
Yes.
So
yes,
we
yes.
need to change that mindset, and then you'll see the change. Also, just accept classical music as a niche genre. Throughout history, only at most in a society, 3% of people listen to classical music. That was the most of all human history. So we have to accept that the money is different, and scale back our expectations. But I think if you change all of that. And you make it fun again, and you go from the perspective of a positive engagement with it. I mean, still doing it at a high level, but with a positive engagement, I think you're going to see a huge shift. And then let people Instagram during concerts. Who cares?
Right. Yeah.
And what I've noticed, if you're good at what you do, they'll Instagram for a little bit, and they will never look at their phone again.
Right.
So that's a good test for you as an audience. Is like. And I've also noticed when I tell people in the audience they can take photos, they take way less photos. They do it once or twice and then done. If you're a good musician. And so like, I don't know. I have a lot to rant about.
No. But this is great. No. So, then one more. then I think we have to, it's time for us to go to the rapid fire. But before that, any advice for young piano students?
Don't forget why you're doing it. That's the first thing. It's like, you're doing this because you love it. If you're not doing it because you love it, reevaluate. And it's okay to reevaluate, and it's okay to fail, and it's okay to quit. Because I quit, a lot of people quit. It's okay to quit. But remember why you're doing it. The second thing is that it's going to be incredibly difficult. And third is, even with all the hard work in the world, you may not have luck. So for instance, with my career, I would say most of my career has been without luck. Like, I haven't made it yet. I'm still an emerging artist. Like, I had to sell my piano to make, keep the bills afloat. I'm still I self-produce 60% of my concerts, right? I'm still unsigned in the United States. I'm chasing down leads constantly. I am networking every night. I'm drinking at K-Town every weekend to find the next person who's gonna pay for my gig.
Yeah.
And like, you just have to. I work out 5 times a week so I can be in stage to look decent on stage, and like I have brand partnerships with fashion designers. I'm a big fan, but also like, I don't have money to buy clothes to change at every concert. So I need to make, you have to accept, if you want that life, it's going to be incredibly difficult, and you may not make it.
Yeah.
And like, you kind of have to be okay with that. And it's hard to be okay with it. Some days I'm not okay with it. Some days I literally just don't do anything, and I like wrap myself in a blanket and I watch like Naruto and I cry. But like, so like, if you accept all of that, then mentally it's gonna be and get a therapist. Just have one on the back.
Sure.
I go to therapy every week since March 1st of 2020.
Right.
It will keep you level-headed, because you can get into a dark place. So yeah, that's for
And
the
earlier
emerging.
you also said, have that positive, mindset, even accepting all of this, but yet still stay positive. It's
you
like
have to.
it's so huge. That's so huge.
Yeah. Well, thank you. That's great advice. And you are being so candid and open to us and trusting us. And I really, really appreciate. So we want to promote your show on November 17th in California, in San Diego?
No, it's in Koreatown in LA.
Oh, it's Koreatown. LA. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There's gonna be a lot of great food. They have this amazing duck that's like cooked in Peking duck
God.
style. They have
I want to
crafted
come.
cocktails. Oh yeah, you should come. If you come to LA,
a few weeks ago, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Like, they have crafted cocktails. They're made by the same people who do Bestia, so they're award-winning cocktails. There's like 3 bars. It's like a cool place. And then Steinway's bring a 7-foot Spirio. So that's
My goodness.
God.
Wow, that's so amazing. And
Sounds like a
also
great party.
another thing is you just produced Nomad in the Sky, which is the latest EP. So you can listen to his the latest production on any streaming services. So be sure to check it out, and also check his website out. It's georgeco.co.
Yep,
georgeco.co. Yeah. Okay, so with this
great.
mood, let's get into this rapid fire question, and then George, we need the shortest answer possible for each question.
Very
okay.
short.
You don't have to explain. We don't judge you. Just answer. All
I'll
right.
just judge myself, but yes.
Oh yeah. No. Number 1. What is your comfort food?
Pizza.
Oh my goodness.
New York pizza. If I
Oh,
can fly
wow.
it over
Best.
here. Yeah, the best pizza. in the world.
Cats or dogs?
Oh, dogs. I'm definitely allergic to both, but dogs.
All right. What is your word or worst to live by?
Live every day like it's your last.
Beautiful. What is the most important quality you look for in other people?
Integrity.
Beautiful.
It's the opposite. What's the worst quality you want to stay away from?
Selfishness.
Name 3 people who inspire you, living or dead.
John Mayer, Hiromi Hara, Rubinstein.
Great. Name one piece in your current playlist.
Skate by Silk Sonic.
Okay. Oh, I don't know that. I want to check it out.
we have to check it
So
out.
good.
Yeah.
You get only one piece or song to listen to for the rest of your life. What is it?
Brahms' Fourth Symphony, specifically Carlos Kleiber conducting the Berlin Philharmonic on the original vinyl
LP, yep.
from Deutsche Grammophon.
Carlos Kleiber.
Beautiful.
Wonderful conductor. Yes.
Yeah, the best.
Now, the last question. Fill in the blank. Music is blank.
Hard.
Thank you.
I love that.
I love it. Yes.
Oh my gosh.
Thank you. Wow, what a fun interview we had. Thank you so much.
No,
Yeah,
thank
thank
you
you.
guys for having me.
Thank you,
so
George.
much.
Oh, this was incredible. So this concludes this episode of the Piano Pod, and thank you, George, once again for joining us today and sharing your stories and insights and expertise. And you can find more information about him and his on his website at georgecode.co. And we want to encourage our audience to check out his events on his website, and all the links are listed in the description.
Thank you to our wonderful audience and fans for tuning in today. If you enjoyed today's episode, please rate and review it on whatever podcasting platform you use. If you are watching us on YouTube, remember to hit the thumbs up button and be sure to subscribe to our channel. You can also find us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. The links are in the description below.
If you're interested in being the guest or recommending someone to be on our show as a guest, or if you'd like to sponsor or collaborate with us, shoot us an email at thepianopodnyc@gmail.com or send us a DM via social media.
We will see you for the next episode of the Piano Pod.
Bye, everyone, and thank you, George.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so
guys.
much. Thank you.